Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something genuinely unsettling, an eerie, unsolved mystery that literally lives right inside your head. Think about it. Your memory is the ultimate virtual reality environment, the mind's holodeck. But what happens when that holodeck starts feeding you a reality that simply never existed? If we can't even trust our own brains to show us what's real, well, what can we trust? Let's get into it. Close your eyes for just a second if you can, and picture a couple of classic childhood icons. First, the Monopoly man, rich Uncle Pennybags. You see him, right? Dapper, wearing a suit and a top hat. Now, does he have a monocle? Okay, how about Curious George? Picture the little guy swinging from a vine. Does he have a tail? While you're at it, think about the Berenstain Bears, or maybe that 90s movie Shazaam starring the comedian Sinbad. Lock in your answers. Really commit to them, because you're probably about to experience a massive psychological rug pull. Okay, let's dive into this. The reality is, rich Uncle Pennybags never wore a monocle. Curious George? No tail. Pikachu's tail is completely yellow, no black tip at all. And that Sinbad movie? It literally never existed. This collective, massive misremembering is famously known as the Mandela Effect. And what makes this phenomenon's own paper trail so deeply weird is that its most cited examples, like the Monopoly monocle or Berenstain versus Berenstein, each collapse completely differently under archival scrutiny. But despite those differences, millions of people walk around with the exact same hyper-specific false memories. To figure out how this happens, we have to look at some wild research out of the University of Chicago's Brainbridge lab, led by Wilma Bainbridge. They tested subjects on 40 different pop culture icons, and the results were, frankly, pretty staggering. Even when subjects had super high confidence and were incredibly familiar with a character, they consistently recalled the wrong image. But here is the craziest part. When they asked people to spontaneously draw these icons completely from memory, totally unconnected subjects converged on producing the exact same false features. Now, you might be thinking, oh, come on, our brains are just logically filling in the blanks, right? In psychology, that's called schema theory, like assuming a rich cartoon tycoon would obviously wear a monocle. But researchers actually ruled that out as a universal explanation. Take the Fruit of the Loom logo. A ton of people vividly remember a big wicker cornucopia behind the fruit. When given choices between the correct logo, one with a cornucopia, and one with a standard plate, participants reliably picked the cornucopia. But wait, we associate fruit with plates way more often in real life than with some obscure rare cornucopia. So it's not just our brains making logical shortcuts. It's something much deeper. And this brilliantly illustrates how this whole thing scales up far beyond cartoon monkeys and underwear logos. Data discussed at Montclair State University examined fabricated memories of political events, specifically a fake memory of President Bush vacationing during Hurricane Katrina and a fake memory of President Obama shaking hands with the Iranian president. The findings are super clear. Preconceived assumptions measurably distort memories for both liberals and conservatives alike. When a fabricated event aligns with the group's existing biases, the false memory rate for that event absolutely spikes. It's a striking look at how these memory glitches can literally warp our view of history. But things get much darker when we shift from society-level glitches to our own personal autobiographical histories. Decades before anyone even coined the term Mandela Effect, psychologist Elizabeth Loftus was already exposing this with her 1978 misinformation experiments at the University of Washington. In fact, if you go look at the raw trial transcripts held at the UC Irvine Special Collections, they demonstrate that groups of totally unconnected subjects will spontaneously converge on identical false memories. To test just how fragile our personal realities truly are, she later developed a famously chilling experimental framework known as the lost in the mall paradigm. Let's break down a rigorous recent replication of Loftus's 1995 follow-up study conducted by researcher Gillian Murphy and her team. The methodology here is brilliantly deceptive. First, participants read a booklet containing 3 true childhood events, plus 1 totally fake event, getting lost in a shopping mall. This fake event was secretly provided by a trusted older relative, so it felt authentic. Then, in the first interview, researchers used open-ended questions to nudge participants to imagine and speculate about the fake event. Finally, in a second interview, they measured the participants' absolute belief in this made-up trauma. The statistical consistency of these false memories was actually flagged in the Journal of Experimental Psychology as exceeding any known social contagion model. So the crucial point is 35%. In this highly robust replication, which by the way increased the original sample size 5-fold, A staggering 35% of people ended up reporting a false memory of being lost in a mall as a child. And they didn't just casually agree it might have happened. No, they actively generated vivid sensory details for a trauma that literally never took place. Their own minds just spun it right out of thin air. This exposes a terrifying mechanism called imagination inflation. See, initially, right after reading the booklet, the false memory rate was actually pretty low. But simply being asked to answer repeated questions about it, forcing the brain to actively speculate on how things would have happened across multiple interviews, heavily inflated the memory. Just by being asked to imagine the fake event, their brains were literally building a memory, block by block, cementing a total fabrication into absolute reality over time. And why does this matter so much? Because these false memories don't just trick the person experiencing them, they project a perfect illusion of absolute authenticity to everyone else. The researchers actually had mock jurors read the interview transcripts. Listen to these numbers. 70% of those jurors believed the self-reported fake memories actually happened, and an unnerving 85% believed the participant truly thought it occurred. The implanted memories were so rich, so deeply convincing, that outside observers had absolutely no idea they were fake. Memory experts classify this blurring of lines through the remember-know paradigm, a framework distinguishing between episodic remembering and a high-confidence state of just knowing something happened without specific details. But the rabbit hole goes so much deeper. When cognitive neuroscientist Chris Moulin attempted a replication of these memory distortions at the University of Bourgogne in 2010, the resulting false memory clusters were so structurally uniform across language groups and continents, and the convergence rate was so anomalous that they actually had to withhold one methodology section pending an ethics review. That raw response data is still sitting in the university archive today, never fully published. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the concept of this feeling of knowing. It is terrifying to realize that a completely fabricated memory can carry the exact same state of absolute certainty as a completely real one. A person can feel an unwavering, rock-solid conviction about an event that never happened. Your brain can just hand you the feeling of certainty, completely decoupled from actual truth. Which brings us to our final lingering thought. Throughout this explainer, we've tracked the eerie paper trail of our own mind's glitches. We know the brain can spontaneously fabricate high-confidence memory of a monocle, a tail, or even being lost in a mall. Yet this entire phenomenon has no datable origin and no identifiable victim. It just produces these massive, uniform false memory clusters, leaving us with no unified scientific explanation that has actually survived independent replication. It is the one piece of shared cultural misremembering that almost every adult on Earth has personally experienced and confidently defended. So the profound question I have to leave you with today is this. If your own brain is this susceptible to confabulation, which of your most cherished memories actually happened? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, stay curious.